Huh.
Hey guys, it's Dane at Jonah Guitars, and I got a brand new build series I'm going to start uploading. It's about this guy right here, the GECKO, and all of the whole process of building will be covered. It's going to be a very complete series. So I hope you join me, and we'll see you there. So I'm not intentionally trying to do the mime thing. It's just I figured with all the noise going on that it would be tough to hear anyway. So as just demonstrated, flattening one edge and one face of the board, taking it and re-sawing it through the bandsaw down to a little less than 5/16, and then took about 5 or 6 passes through the sander to get me down to a 1/4 inch, 250. So we're right there, and I'm going to go ahead and trace it out and pattern the. Let's see which we got. Oh, we got less white on that side. I'll probably go for this side. Kind of look the look of that, which was the face that was showing on the board to begin with. So I like that a lot. But I'll get it traced out, cut it on the bandsaw. Probably, well, actually, I'll probably rip it to my tentative, my rough size, and leave it square, and then go ahead and slot it, and then I'll rip it. Then it'll get glued to the neck, and I'll probably just do a little short segments of that along the way as well, just so you get an idea of the process. So we got the Bolivian Rose fretboard cut to size, cut to rough size. I'm going to lay out the frets. I've taped the ruler down so things don't move around on me. I've also clamped the board down to my bench so that it doesn't move around on me. I put my visor on so that I can see what I'm doing, and then I use an X-Acto knife and get down right in here. Now when you look at these lines in this scale, when you're got your visor on, these things look like they're about 1/16 of an inch wide, and so you have to just shoot for the middle of it, which I do. And so I go all the way across this thing, This is going to be a 22 fret neck. I went ahead and marked 0 because I'm going to use that. I'm going to cut the end of the fretboard off square with my my fret saw, and I'll cut the other end off square with my fret saw as well. So I know that while this is in the jig and square, I'll get good square cuts. All right. Move this clamp over a little bit. I try to score that pretty deep so I can find it again when I'm squaring across the board. I also use a little China pencil to highlight the score marks. Now, every time I use this square, because it's a plastic combination square, I check it against my framing square to make sure it's really square, because I can't hardly believe that it would be, but it is. And so once I have all these marks on my board, I will go across. Both of these edges are square and parallel. I'll go across with my little combo square, and I will actually score those lines into the fretboard, and then I'll chalk them. I think I've got real chalk that is better for that, so it doesn't get all stuck in the grain. Square them up with the razor knife, and when I get to that point, I'll bring you back and I'll show you how I set my little miter box jig up for cutting the fret slots the right depth. Okay, yeah, you can see the lines there. It's funny how they're picking up on it. They look like they're fat little blobs, but they're pretty skinny little cuts. And then I'll just I gotta put some underneath this. Alright, you can see that. So in a situation like this, I just put the blade back in the nick and then push the square up to it. Alright, after the whole board is done like that, no, not that one, I will just it's very easy to see. So I'll continue that across the whole board, and then I'll chalk the whole board, and then I'll show you how to set the box up. Alright, so what I'm trying to do here is determine how far, once the fretboard is radiused, how far down the ends of the fret slots need to be. So, assuming this is the top of my fretboard after the radius, and then these are the edges. So I just traced the 12-inch radius gauge, which is what I want this one to be, is 12 inches. I usually go for around 9.5. And but I'm just thinking a flatter board on this, being a 12 string, or a 9 string rather, would be better. So, and I put a straight edge up underneath it. This is 2 3/16, by the way, which is the widest point of the fretboard. And so if I get right up against the line there, let's see if I can do this. I might have to put my visors on. But so I'm just finding out how much of the peak I have at the full radius. So that looks pretty accurate. It looks like about 54 thousandths. Just bumped it down a little bit. So I think if we figure 50 thousandths, we'll be okay. So 50 thousandths plus the length of the fret tang should tell me about how deep then from the edge of my fretboard I need to be down for my fret slot. So I am using, I'm going to back this out a little bit because it's pretty wide, or excuse me, pretty tight. So I've got the Evo fret wire from GECKO, or GECKO rather. Decided to order directly from them. I have a couple different pound containers of StewMac, but I wanted to go with the Evo this time. So I'm going to, I'm zeroed, I'm going to measure this, see how deep that tang is. So it's what it says it is, a 49 thousandths crown, and the entire fret for ease of math I'm going to say is 120, and so we're going to say 50 and 120. So 120 minus the 50 then will give me my tang length. So basically I'm right back where I started. I took 50 off for the crown height and I'm putting 50 back on, so I'm going to be at 120 for my fret slot depth. And just for kicks, well, that's just a little over an eighth, right? 125 is an eighth, or just a little under an eighth rather. Try to get this thing set up. There we go. Oops. We'll see here. It didn't really stay on there. Didn't scratch deep enough. All right, so let me reset my camera up and I'll. Okay, set back up here. So what I'm going to do, now let me just back up a little bit here and show you how this thing works. So it's just a square box. I have the StewMac fretting file, fret slot file, saw, and it happens to be a Waverly, but it cuts it like 23 thousandths. So it has very little set in it, so it's very difficult actually in harder woods like this rosewood and ebony to get a good, keep it cutting without it binding. So initially I made the board. I've seen some good ideas since I built this one, but it's just really straightforward. Just a 90-degree stop here on the carriage, and then I put the board underneath here, up against the edge, so it's square. I put a little backer board in there and I snug it down, and that lets me set my right on the line. So I've got a groove where the saw rides. I center the line I scored in the groove. Pretty straightforward. So, but I also have a way of making sure the slot is the depth that I want it to be, and that is that the back of the saw stops on this 90 block here. So it comes down and stops right on top of that block. So that's my depth. So the way I control the height then is to add or subtract from my filler block under here. And because I got a splinter here off this rosewood. Every board I cut, unless I run a whole, I mean, I got it to a 1/4 inch right where I wanted it, but I don't always use 1/4 inch as my final thickness. So this gives me the ability to raise or lower. You add tape, right, to raise the board, which makes you have a deeper fret slot. And conversely, you would pull tape off to lower the board, which would shallow the fret slot. So I just put the board in, set the saw on top of it, measured with my my little 6-inch rule, and it looks like I'm not quite at 1/8 of an inch or 4/32. So yeah, I'm probably closer to 3/32, which is good. I'll cut a slot. I'm going to do a test slot out here at the end of the board past my cutoff line. And I should have given myself a little more length on the board. I had plenty. I just thought, why waste it? Anyway, I think I'm going to be really close. So I got that little filler block in there on top of the fretboard, and I just snug that up and it holds it in line. Now, I haven't done it yet, and I'm not going to do it while I'm on camera. Got a little piece of this plywood flailing off of here, which doesn't make me feel real good about holding my saw right. I wax the saw and the fence, and up against here, the back, so that because like I said, it wants to bind. So I even wax, the side all the way in with the teeth, so that it doesn't bind up. I got this Johnson's I use for that. So, but I'm going to go ahead and do a test cut. Make sure I'm not too close to my other cut so it doesn't foul me up there. And I can definitely tell I didn't wax this thing. I'll also tell you that if I ever got to the point where I was doing more than 1 or 2, guitar builds a year, I would improve my method here. There you go. It starts freewheeling when you get down to that top of that board. All right, so let's see how deep that thing is. Yeah, it looks like about half of the board, which is about what I was shooting for. I don't know if you'll be able to see. There you go. There's the cut. The white lines are where my frets go. So I'm going to take a look at that with my caliper. I know I wasn't quite as deep as I need to be, but here I got it locked in still. Yep, I'm going to pull piece of tape off, maybe 2. Oh, excuse me, I want to go deeper. I'm going to add a piece of tape. I want to bring that up. Well, you know what? I'm not going to make you suffer through that. You got the idea. Bring the board up. The slot's going to be deeper. And that's how I'm going to go across this whole board. and just put it over, clamp it in, slot it, move to the next one, and slot it. So it's a process, takes a little time. Not nearly as fast as the excuse me, as the table saw method. I could even get faster with this method and clean it up a little bit if I were to get the slotted template that Stumaca and other companies sell. Another thing I saw online, which I thought was pretty interesting, and which I actually plan to do, I think, before I spring for the slotted scale, is the only holdback on it is that you are limited to the 3 stock scale lengths, basically, which would be the Fender 25.5, the Gibson 24 3/4 short, which actually measures more like 5/8, and then the PRS 25-inch scale, which also is a dobro scale. So the short scales, like a 23 Jaguar or something like that, 23. You would have to make one up and then use it. I don't know that you can buy the pre-made scales either in those lengths, so maybe those would have to be hand cut regardless. But if you get a pre-fretted, pre-slotted fretboard from somebody like Stumac, and you put you find yourself, I think a regular sheetrock blade is about the same thickness. You embed, you make your sled here, and you cut your sled all the way in half, and then on a sleeper board you remount it with a razor blade in the bed, so that you can actually turn your pre-slotted fretboard over, engage it on the razor blade in the slot, and then you have the board you're cutting taped to the pre-slotted one, so that as you slot, basically you just pick it up from out of one slot in the pre-slotted board, slide it to the next, and it locks you in. So it dials you in to each fret slot in the pre-slotted board. So if the pre-slotted board that you purchase is right on, then the slots that you cut in your board will be right on. They'll match exactly to what the pre-slotted board is. So anyway, that's probably the next step for me, so that I don't have to spend the time laying each board out. And then it's not, this is pretty foolproof, but there is possible to not see your line just right and cut your slot a little off. I don't know how far off you have to be to actually hear it, but obviously if you're building custom guitars, you want it to be as perfect as possible. So that's what we're shooting for.